This is just an essential gathering every year. I'm so grateful as a progressive who believes that this country still has to be forward deployed in the world as a force for good, that foreign policy for America does that hard work of not just coming up with the ideas and policies that many of us carry in Congress, but does the hard work of organizing, doesn't see organizing as a dirty word, right? Realizes that we got to go out into the communities and explain to people how we're going to learn from the mistakes of the past in order to move into the future. So really, really grateful to be here with you for, as Esther noted, the second year in a row. Last year, I believe, I talked to you all about corruption. And if I was going to talk about the most important thing happening in American foreign policy this year, I would talk about corruption. But you don't want to hear the same speech 2 years in a row, so I'm going to talk to you about a little something different. And that's the work broadly that we as progressives have to do to learn not just from Donald Trump's mistakes, but from our mistakes as well. Both Jean and I, and maybe even Peter, were in Munich. Many of you might have been there for the security conference. And it felt this year a little bit like a funeral. It was sort of a funeral in some ways for the post-World War II order. Everybody realized that for years it had been decaying, but that Donald Trump was attempting to really deal a death blow. And, you know, if it was a funeral, it was a very well-attended funeral. There were a lot of people in Munich worrying about the end of that order. And it made me think that if you held a funeral in the United States for the death of the post-World War II order, how many people would show up? And it'd be almost nobody except for the same people who went to the Munich Security Conference from the United States of America. And the reason for that is that for a lot of Americans, for as much good as this order has done, they have seen the rough edges of that order. They have seen how the post-World War II neoliberal economic order has consolidated economic power and social power to a tiny group of elites that have little concern for everybody else. To them, the economy that they're living in today, where social mobility is an afterthought, a dream, where a small group of people control all the things that matter in their life, that's a consequence of a decision that we made after World War II to create that integrated global economy. Second, it's created a cult of profit and efficiency, a transatlantic cult of profit and efficiency that has driven dignity out of work, has caused 40% of Americans to be living paycheck to paycheck where they don't have enough money in the bank to even afford an emergency car repair. The post-World War II order has been increasingly an order of scarcity for many Americans. That order sold us on the benefits of a seamless world economy, a flattened, unifying world culture, and global citizenship, when in fact, people really want to be citizens of unique, local, small places. And those places outside of DC and New York and San Francisco and LA are not terribly healthy today. And that order has gotten this country into disastrous war after disastrous war that Americans were told was essential to protect this nation and that world order, but ended up just getting a lot of Americans killed and wasting trillions of dollars and distracted American leaders generation after generation from fixing real problems at home. I'm just saying this because we all cheered President Biden when he declared that America is back. But people were like, back for what, right? Is this more of the same? Like, no thanks. And again, that's not to say that there weren't and still are tremendous benefits from that order, from that alliance. If you look at the trajectory of global deaths due to conflict, it is going down despite all of the fires that exist in the world because of that order that has prevented much of the frequent state-on-state violence that we saw prior to World War II. There have been tremendous advancements in our economy that has come from that order, shared advancements that have helped people. So I don't mean to minimize the upside of the order. I just think you need to understand why we got stuck with Donald Trump a second time, because Biden comes back, says we're going back to what we had. People said, no, we told you. We told you in 2016. We don't want that. We want something new. And if we as progressives don't do a real accounting, right, of what people really want from our engagement in the world, then I think we are not doing our work in this room. So here's what I just want to say about the path forward. The right does a much better job of the left when it comes to a spiritual assessment of the state of the country. And people in this country are feeling really alone right now. They are feeling really powerless right now. And we need a foreign policy that matches people's sense of loneliness and people's sense of powerlessness. And we would be misreading a lot of the essential elements of Donald Trump's foreign policy if we just said it was about jingoism or xenophobia, right? Because a lot of what he talks about is really about power, is about a message that these forces, these global forces that you were told are just out of our control, they can be inside our control. We can exert power collectively on these forces, like global migration. That looked like a phenomenon that the United States could not control, with literally thousands of people pouring over our borders on a daily basis. Donald Trump says, no, that is within our control. We can control it. If you're part of my coalition, if you are part of my team, we will control this force. We'll do it with a wall. We'll do it with a suspension of asylum. All sorts of terrible solutions, all sorts of xenophobic and racist solutions, but he's selling control. What is tariffs about? Tariffs are fundamentally about control. Tariffs are saying this phenomenon that you thought was out of our control, the outsourcing of jobs away from the United States, we can control it with tariffs. And by the way, it's an attack on the cult of profit and the cult of efficiency that people are so sick and tired of. Our entire economy being organized only around investor returns, around making things more and more robotically efficient. No, because tariffs are inefficient. Tariffs signal that you care about something, in this case, domestic job creation, more than you care about profit. People noticed that the big corporations were crowing against the tariffs. That was a good thing as far as they were concerned. Now, the tariffs don't work. They are ham-handed. You can't bring jobs back to this country without combining protectionism with incentives for domestic production. But recognize that Trump's foreign policy is about a message of powerfulness, just as Trump's entire movement is a movement about connection, a movement about people finding a home with each other. And so when we design our foreign policy, when we go out and explain how if you put progressives, Democrats, the left in charge, we will build a new foreign policy, we have to start with a message that empowers Americans and empowers local communities. So that means a concentrated, purposeful effort with our allies in Europe to break up concentrated corporate power, to put regulations around the most poisonous technologies that are right now disempowering and corrupting families and kids, whether that be social media, AI, or cryptocurrency, showing across the Atlantic that government can be powerful in protecting you from harm. Thus far, people feel adrift because government has not been able to protect them from the harms of new technology. That means a responsible economic nationalism, a decision that, yes, we are going to create a distinct American economy. We are going to decide to have a certain set of industries and jobs here at home. And combined with a breakup of concentrated corporate power, that may actually mean that those hollowed out local communities that served as an avatar for what was wrong about the post-World War II global economic order become powerful again. And then finally, a laser-like focus on corruption. Again, this can be done in cooperation with our transatlantic allies, but a decision that we are just not going to accept that a handful of corporations and billionaires and millionaires control our politics. That breeds a sense of powerlessness, a sense of political powerlessness. I work hard at my job and I don't advance, but I try to step a foot inside politics and I can't make a difference either because our politics is corrupted by concentrated political power as well. If we have a message, and again, most of that is domestic focused, taking on corruption, taking on concentrated power, building a responsible kind of economic nationalism, that will give a permission structure to the next set of progressives that are going to lead to re-enter the world. But if people don't feel powerful, if they don't feel powerful here at home, if they feel alone and disintegrated and atomized by the technology that cycles us into withdrawal, then they are going to continue to follow leaders who say, let's focus here at home. Let's engage in a pugilism against our allies. So I want us to build a new way of engaging in the world. But that means, that mechanism has to attack the sickness, the spiritual sickness that exists in this country that has caused Donald Trump to be able to say, we just don't have enough bandwidth to engage and we have to focus here. I think that's a daunting project, but I think it's one that we can tackle. And I think if we understand how seamless our work of domestic renaissance is with our task of trying to combat a growing isolationism in this country, we're going to be able to build an integrated response to Trumpism, not just reestablishing a vibrancy of shared prosperity here in the United States, but allowing us to re-enter the world with Americans who are ready to give us that permission because they feel more powerful, they feel less jeopardized by that global order. And I'm just here telling you this because that's exactly what Foreign Policy for America was organized to do. That's why you have always, from the beginning, had an understanding that there is really no separation between what America is doing abroad and what America is doing here at home. And so I think all of us on the Foreign Relations Committee, all of my colleagues in the Democratic Caucus love coming here because when we create these big charges, these big mandates to you and to the folks who staff Foreign Policy for America, you constantly are able to respond. We have to build an answer for Americans who have been scratching their head about who our engagement with the world serves. They have come to believe that it serves the folks who make things for the Department of Defense, who profit off of war. They have come to believe that it serves the big, powerful corporate interests. But we can build a new vision of America's integration with the world that first, second, and third serves the poor, the disenfranchised, the middle class, the average workers here at home. I know you'll take up that charge, and that's why we will stay connected and integrated with all of you. Thank you very much for having me.